What's good with everybody, man? ETM Hotep, Rennie Sean. Welcome to Peace. My name is Sean. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to Science with Sean. Please like the show, share the show, tell a friend, tell a friend. We're actually in the building. Tonight we're going to go over we're going to revisit the origins of Sars Cov2. And to be honest, according to what is their name? YouTube guidelines, we have to make sure that when we're talking about SARS CoV, that it aligns with the WHO's information. So what I am going to show you today is going to refer to WHO's discoveries and things like that, but I also want to talk about the elevated information regarding the subject matter. I hate to have to go through that like that, but I mean, it is what it is with YouTube. I mean, I could dispute it or whatever, and I don't think that they'll actually ding this particular video because what I'm going to be saying is evidence-based and is supported via science. So, Kofi is pseudo, so shout out to him. And man, look, listen. Black Panther's book is available, but Black Panther is only available through Black Panther directly at this particular juncture. Once it is, he has 25 copies that he is making available. His African Spirituality, a Religion, is the name of the book, and he's going to argue such. You know what I'm saying? He's going to argue such in the book. So I know you've known that a conversation has already been had prior, you know, with Ma'at being deemed, well, the principles of Ma'at being deemed as a religion and so on and so forth. So this work was already anticipated and coming down the pipe. You're going to hear Tyson snore because it is his bedtime, and I am in his arena. But I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and I want to go ahead and get directly into wrong thing. I want to get into my book, put my book on the screen real quick for everybody here. So SARS-CoV-2 origins bonus material. If you don't have the book What SARS-CoV-2 Taught Me, this information is actually in the book. I also, in the description of this particular video, there's the link to the book, and as well as some additional sources that we're going to deal with in this build. And one video that is in the source, so I've already played the disclaimer. I don't expect everybody to, a lot of people to be here right now. They're arguing ignorance on another channel, but you know what I'm saying? It is what it is right there. So let's get into the build. So I wrote this I wrote this a while ago, shoot, and sat on it for a while. But I want to kind of go back to this. I've kind of did this before a little bit, but I want to go back to this. So the origins of COVID are still being investigated. Hold up. Is this big enough for everybody? I mean, 200% zone. Yeah, all right, that's about as good as I actually can get it. But anyway, the origins of COVID are still being investigated. However, a very shaky hypothesis has been regurgitated by non-scientists, stating that the virus was man-made or potentially leaked from a lab. In chapter 1, I began with viruses for a reason, because I needed to make sure that you understood viruses are natural. As we began to populate the globe, the more we became exposed to novel, the more we populated the globe, the more we became exposed to novel viruses. Currently, Cell.com has published a nice article on SARS-CoV-2 origins in bats. Results demonstrated a 96 to 97% match, providing a very strong case. However, we will continue to allow science an opportunity to have its say and not come to an absolute conclusion at this time. WHO, the World Health Organization, was not convinced of the lab leak origins, but did not close the door on that option. The WHO study revealed two potential lineages of concern: the wet market in Wuhan and domesticated wildlife in some form. WHO, which is the World Health Organization, stated tracebacks are very important in this stage. As for virus origins, if you think the Spanish flu evolved from Spain, that shows a lack of understanding of viruses on your part. Its origins have not been settled for over 100 years. Science has no consensus, however. Historians assume the origins are China. What many do not know about virus origins is that it is hard to narrow down a virus origin to a specific place, but after further research, we can potentially narrow it down to a geographical location. Swine flu was assumed to have its origins in the US, but later it was revealed that its true origins were Mexico. There is much debate among virologists about this question. Three main hypotheses have been articulated. Excuse me. One, the progressive or escape hypothesis states that the virus arose from genetic elements that gain the ability to move between cells. Two, the regressive or reduction hypothesis asserts that viruses are remnants of cellular organisms. And three, the virus first hypothesis states that the virus predate or co-evolved with their current cellular host. The progressive hypothesis, according to this hypothesis, viruses originated through a progressive process. Mobile genetic elements, species of genetic material capable of moving within a genome, gain the ability to exit one cell and enter another. To conceptualize this transformation, let's examine the replication of retroviruses, the family of viruses to which HIV belongs. Retroviruses have a single-stranded RNA genome. When the virus enters the host cell, a viral enzyme reverses transcriptase, converts that single-stranded RNA into double-stranded DNA. This viral DNA then migrates to the nucleus of the host cell. Another viral enzyme integrates, inserts the newly formed viral DNA into the host cell genome. Viral genes can then be transcribed and translated. The host cell's RNA polymerase can produce new copies of the virus single-strand RNA genome. Progeny viruses assemble and exit the cell to begin the process again. In layman's term, all this is saying is that the way a virus operates is it infects a host, it recreates itself in a host until it replicates enough, and then it is transmitted through whatever other means, whether it be coughing, whether it be mucus of some sort, saliva, um, if it depends on what type of virus it is. If you touch somebody or, cuts and things like that, you could be exposed to it. So basically, this is saying how a virus infects a host, replicates, does what it does, and then it's ready to leave the body. And through those symptoms, when people are coughing, hawking, spitting, sneezing, uh, pooping, peeing, because you can find viruses in waste, you know what I'm saying? Sex, things of that nature, cuts, it has the potential to exit the body and find a new host. Now, this process very closely mirrors the movement of an important, though somewhat unusual component of most eukaryotic genomes, retrotransposons. Now, these mobile genetic elements make up an astonishing 42% of the human genome. Lander is the source for that, and can move within the genome via an RNA intermediate. Like retroviruses, certain class of retrotransposons, the viral-like integrase. Now, with these enzymes, these elements can be transcribed into RNA, reverse transcribed into DNA, and then integrated into a new location within the genome. We can speculate that the acquisition of few structural proteins could allow the element to exit a cell and enter a new cell, thereby becoming an infectious agent. Indeed, the genetic structures of retroviruses and viruses alike retrosponsones show remarkable similarities. The regressive hypothesis is, in contrast to the progressive process described, viruses may have originated via a regressive or reductive process. Now, I'm saying all of that in my sources to say that we're building up to how viruses mutate and adapt and infect. We're talking about the evolutionary process of these viruses and how they can go across the globe or they are in a particular area, because this deals everything with origin. All right. So, in contrast to progressive processes just described, viruses may originate via a regressive or reductive process. Microbiologists generally agree that certain bacteria that are obligated intracellular parasites, like chlamydia or Rickettsia species, evolved from a free living ancestor. Indeed, genomic studies indicate that the mitochondria of eukaryotic cells and Rickettsia paretsky may share a common free living ancestor. It follows then the existing virus may have evolved from more complex possible free living organisms that lost genetic information over time as they adopt a parasite approach to replication. Viruses of the non particular group, the nucleocytoplasmic large DNA viruses, best illustrate this hypothesis. These viruses, which include smallpox virus and recently discovered giant of all viruses, viruses, are much bigger than most viruses. A typical black-shaped poxvirus, for instance, may be 20 nanometers wide and 300 nanometers long. About twice the size of the virus exhibits a total diameter of roughly 750 nanometers. Conversely, spherically shaped influenza virus, particularly particles, may be only 80 nanometers in diameter, and poliovirus particles are 30 nanometers, roughly 10,000 times smaller than a grain of salt. Yeah, you heard me. 10,000 times smaller than a grain of salt. So, ladies and gentlemen, out of the three viruses that I just basically told you, the virus, poliovirus, and pox virus, the polio virus, virus, and yeah, we didn't include that one. Out of these viruses that we just mentioned, okay, the point is these viruses are very small. We can't see them with our naked eye. We need microscope lenses to be able to see these viruses. So when you have a foreign pathogen that is making its way through a globe at a particular rate, no one can see it. It's an invisible war machine. That's what I'm calling it. It's an invisible war machine. Technology is not even that advanced to get down to that level at all. So let's continue. So the NCL-DVS also possesses large genomes. Again, poxvirus genomes are often approach the 200,000 base pairs, and virus has a genome of 1.2 million base pairs. Poliovirus have 7,500 nucleotides total. In addition to their large size, the NCLDVs exhibit greater complexity than other viruses have, and depends less on their host of replication than do viruses. So I'm not going to read the entire thing because the book is out there, sourced up, as you can see the sources in each one of these things, and educating you on these viruses and how small they are, and its importance in understanding what RNA viruses are and DNA viruses are, and then these different hypotheses on how these origins accelerate, right? We want to get into this other part now, because in the first onset, I'm setting the stage to make the argument scientifically. All right. Now, this is important to know when researching virus origins. All this stuff that I say right here and I put in here with these sources is important to know when researching virus origins. One can't succumb to a lab leak hypothesis because without understanding, we can't determine how it got in the lab to begin with. Scientists strongly conclude that the virus has not been modified. More specifically, the authors of new research looked at two components of the spike proteins: the receptor binding domain, you heard me say this a lot, which latches onto a healthy host cell and at the cleavage site, opens up the virus and allows it to penetrate the host cell. I'm going to say it again. The receptor binding domain, that little spiky stuff on the COVID virus, latches onto your cell, opens it up at the cleavage site, and allows the cell to enter your body. So imagine taking a knife, right? Stabbing yourself in a muscle fat area. The knife is penetrating the first layer, which is your skin, right? And it's opening up. When you pull that knife out, no matter how hard you do it, when you stick it in there and pull it up out of there, it then went in and then it then opened up. So imagine, I think that's a bad analogy. It's like a mosquito bite. Just look at it like that. That's more common sense. I guess it's more common for people. Say a mosquito bite. Mosquito lands on some part of your body, right? What it does is it penetrates your first layer of protection. When it sticks its little beak down in you, right? Yeah, it gets down in you and then it opens up. That mosquito bite then passes on something which causes you to have a reaction. So wherever they bite you at, right? Wherever that point is, and they trying to get that blood up out of you, it's opened up an area, it's created a reaction, and it allowed itself to pass on whatever it needed to pass on to it, because for a little while you're gonna be scratching and itching unless you can tolerate mosquito bites or whatever the case may be. Uh JaVale said, are those coronaviruses? Now, the viruses that I actually mentioned are all different viruses. It don't matter if it's a coronavirus, it's a virus. They all operate the same as far as origins. It don't matter excuse me, it don't matter what type of virus it is. They all behave different. They all behave in the same manner. They're just different. You have RNA viruses and then you have DNA viruses. That's why someone told you the other day, JaVale, to get the book so that you can understand how this work builds up to helping you gain a better understanding for some of the things that you was asking in the chat. Anyway, more specifically, the authors of new research looked at two components of the spike protein: the receptor binding domain, which latches onto the host cell at the cleavage site, opens up the virus, and allows it to penetrate the host cell. To bind in human cells, spike proteins need a receptor, or human cells called angiotensin converting enzymes, or what we know as ACE2, or what people have been familiar with what is called ACE2. Scientists found that the receptor binding domain of the spike protein had evolved to a target ACE2 so effectively that it could only have been the result of natural selection and not a genetic engineering. So the video that you sent me and the video that was saying some of the things are being eliminated here in this discussion, JaVale. Furthermore, the molecular structure of the backbone of SARS-CoV-2 supported this finding. If scientists had engineered the new coronavirus purposely as a pathogen, explained to researchers, the starting point would likely have been the backbone of another virus in the coronavirus family. I'm going to say that again. If scientists had engineered the new coronavirus purposely as a pathogen, explain the researchers. The starting point would likely have been the backbone of another virus in the coronavirus family. However, the backbone of SARS-CoV-2 was very different than those of other coronaviruses and was most similar to related viruses in bats and pangolins. These two features of the virus and the mutations at the RBD, receptor binding domain portion of the spike protein and its distinct backbone ruled out laboratory manipulation as a potential origin of SARS-CoV-2, explains Anderson. Now, conspiracy theorists or conspiracists claim without any evidence that people have modified and created the ACE2 citing gain of function as premise. When asked to explain gain of function, things begin to get murky, which is a sign that someone is regurgitating something someone else had said without providing any evidence. As mentioned previously, the study published in Cell uncovered 4 related novel coronaviruses found in bats, more specifically the rhinolopifid bats, which were found in several different parts of Asia. Despite the now, I'm finna hit you with the source since you think I don't want nobody to think that I'm just talking, right? So now I'm gonna hit you with the source. I'm gonna tell you what they found, and then I'm gonna hit you with it. So that's how I do. You got to get to it. So, despite the discovery of animal coronaviruses related to SARS-CoV-2, the evolutionary origins of the virus are elusive. We describe a transcriptomic study of 411 bat sample collected of a small geographical region in Yunnan province, China, between 2019 and 2020, identified 24 full-length coronavirus genomes, including 4 novel coronaviruses related to 3 SARS-CoV-related viruses. The Rhinolupus pilosis virus, RPYN06, was the closest relative. There it is again. This is your closest relative genetically, all right, mapped. When you talk about mapping genomes, RPYN06 is the closest thing to the OG ancestor strand DG614. Was the closest related of the SARS-CoV-2 in most of the genome, although it possessed a more divergent spike gene. The other 3 SARS-CoV-2 related coronaviruses carried a genetically distinct spike gene that could weakly bind to the ACE2 receptor in vitro. Ecologically modeling predicted the coexistence of up to 23 rhinolophus bat species, with the largest contagious hotspots extending from South Laos and Vietnam to southern China. Now, most of y'all don't know what in vitro means. You need to go look up what in vitro means so that you can get a better understanding of that study and how it's explained. Our study highlights the remarkable diversity of bat coronaviruses at a local scale, including close relatives of bat SARS and SARS-2 and SARS-CoV-1. Now, the WHO says, I said something earlier to y'all, and I need the evidence to support what I just said. So I'm bagging it up with multiple sources. The genetic lineages of SARS-CoV-2 associated with earlier cases in Wuhan were documented in the WHO report. Previously noted that at the root of the phylogeneity of SARS-CoV-2, 2 lineages designated lineage A and lineage B. Y'all heard us argue this against the pseudo people on Old Boy platform. Friend, what is it? Something with the mind. Dialogue, mind, something, whatever. Anyway, early lineage A virus includes SARS-CoV-2 isolate sampled on the 30th of December from a person linked to wildlife market, different than the Hunan market. Okay, lineage A virus shares 2 nucleotides, the T8-782 in the ORF1AB and C28-144 in the ORF8, with the bat viruses RATG13 and RMYN02. I know they don't mean nothing to you, but they're just talking about genomic, how they doing it. All right, now, and other saber coronaviruses, it's likely that the most recent common ancestor of SARS-CoV-2 shares the same genome sequence as these earlier lineages, lineage A. Now, different nucleotides are present at those sites in viruses to lineage B, such as SARS coronavirus isolated in Wuhan, sampled from the Hunan market on the 30th of December. All viruses positive samples of Hunan market from vendors or customers of the market from environmental samples contain SARS-CoV-2 B lineage. There was limited genetic diversity in the lineage B samples from Hunan market, which is consistent with the market as a site of the superspreader event. Lineage A and B viruses spread throughout Wuhan and to other countries. Now, Gary in 2021 in the short lineage A and B are seen flowing toward the area, not coming from the opposite direction. This is key because it adds to all the evidence that has been compiled over the past year and with reports that have surfaced online. While writing this book, we have also learned that the White House intel was inconclusive and did not lean one way or another. This is me. In short, lineage A and B are seen flowing toward the area, not coming from opposite direction. This is key because it adds to all the evidence that has been compiled over the past year with reports that have surfaced online. While writing this book, we have also learned that the White House intel was inconclusive and did not lean one way or the other. Now, until the science is settled, I suggest people focus on staying safe, continue to practice social distancing, wearing masks, and get vaccinated. This is our best line of defense against a novel virus with multiple variants. However, once we understand virus origins and hypothesis, we can conclude that we may not ever really get an exact answer of SARS-CoV-2 origins. What Cell publishes a clear indicator that SARS-CoV-2 was not made in the lab and exists in nature. The lab leak theory is just a hypothesis, not a theory, because that claim has not been scrutinized scientifically, nor has it gone through rigorous studies to demonstrate it to be plausible otherwise. So, the importance of understanding virus origins is to go back and understand how I started the chapter here with all the evidence in front of you to help you understand that. Now, I know this goes over a lot of people's head and they can't understand most of the stuff that's said in that particular few pages. So I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna extend it a little bit more. So, published in Science not too long ago, the other day. Brother Davis has up already. So you know me and him reading on the same level. The Hunan seafood wholesale market in Wuhan was the early epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's how the article is titled. This is published this year. This is updated in current scholarship on the subject matter. So, without boring y'all to death, it says here, understanding how severe acute respiratory syndrome or SARS-CoV-2 emerged in 2019 is critical to prevent zoonotic outbreaks before they become the next pandemic. The Hunan seafood wholesale market in Wuhan, China, was identified as a likely source of the case in early reports, but later this conclusion became controversial. We show the earliest known COVID-19 cases in December 2019, including without report direct links were geographically centered on this market. We report that live SARS-CoV-2 susceptible mammals were sold at the market in late 2019. I'm going to say that again. We report that live, not dead, not weakened, live SARS-CoV-2 susceptible mammals were sold at the market in late 2019. And within the market, SARS-CoV-2 positive environmental samples were spatially associated with vendors selling live mammals. While there is insufficient evidence to define upstream events, an exact circumstance remains obscure. Our analysis indicates that the emergence of SARS-CoV-2 occurred via the live wildlife trade in China and showed that Hunan market was the epicenter of the pandemic. This article argues the case, provides additional information, but it also goes back and it elaborates on information that we've already covered in 2021. As you can see, this source is the WHO document earlier on. It says the Chinese government notified WHO of an outbreak, severe pneumonia. It goes through and talks about the people that were hospitalized and how it all started, right? We know this early information because just like this article sources this, I also have that in my book. Okay. Sustained live mammal cells during, they go through and then they give you the sustained live mammal soul. All right. So here's the result. They give their little part and then they go into the results. So I'm gonna read a little bit about the results. And I'm not gonna get into both early lineages. I just did all that in my book. Now remember, this was published, first released July 26, 2022. It is talking about the same stuff that I have in my book. 2 lineages of SARS CoV2 designated lineage A and lineage B. Okay? So I'm letting y'all know how much of that information I was taking in, gathering, and collecting during the whole pandemic, that an article written a year later from, when my book was done, is talking about the same stuff. Anyway, in 2021, World Health Organization mission report identified 174 COVID cases. We know all about that, how it started. I even talk about that in the book. While early COVID cases occurred across Wuhan, it talks about the river, high density cases surrounding the market, and goes on from there. So we're getting some of what I basically, a lot of what I've already said to y'all in my book, in this article, in the results. So for the people out there that thought that I didn't have enough sense to put together a piece of work that could help educate somebody on this particular argument, it was there. I was already able and prepared to extend the Origins article that I put in my book to add more to it. So anyway, like I said, I'm not going to read a bunch of this. I'm just trying to show people how my book was in there, because it's something else I really want to get to. All right. So like I said, I put this in the description for people who want to read. You ain't got my book, then you shorthanded, because you can't say what I did do, what I didn't do. Anyway, so published on the 12th of August last week, literally 5 days ago or whatever. Says COVID-19 lab leak theory debunked by Australian professor who was dubbed the virus hunter. Let's see what he says. Eddie Holmes can still remember the exact moment he first learned about COVID-19. He's a Sydney virologist. On New Year's Eve, he received a news alert that China had notified the WHO of the strange virus. It said 4 cases of an episode of pneumonia were found in live animal market in Wuhan. He said it immediately rang alarm bells. The professor told ABC News Daily the story jumped out because he had visited that very market, the Hunan Seafood Wholesale Market, in 2014. He said while he was there, he noticed that these live wildlife for sale, particularly raccoon dogs and muskrats. He said, I took photographs because I thought to myself, God, that's not quite right. So here's the photographs that he took. Okay. These are the photographs that he took in the Wuhan lab when he visited. I don't know what that is in there with them, but they're in there. All right. Now he says raccoon dogs. That's what he calling them, I guess. Raccoon dogs. Raccoon dogs have been associated with the emergence of different coronavirus outbreaks. In SARS CoV-1 in 02 and 04 became worldwide SARS virus. In 2014, Holmes believed the market would become a site of virus transmission between animals and humans. I said to my Chinese colleagues, this is really interesting situation here. We should do some sampling of the animal market to see what viruses these animals have got and if they're going to jump. Now, engine room disease emergence. The monitoring that Professor Holmes suggested never took place, but in the early days of COVID-19, he was still convinced that a market like the one in Wuhan was the logical origin of the virus. He says, they are the kind of engine room or this sort of disease emergence, because what you're doing is you're putting humans and wildlife in close proximity to each other, he said. While a virus jumping from animals to humans seemed the most likely cause of COVID-19 by early 2020, another theory began to emerge. that the virus had been created by Chinese scientists and somehow escaped from a lab. So in January of that year, scientists from the Wuhan Institute of Virology released a paper in the journal Nature comparing the COVID-19 genome to that of the closest relative, the bad virus produced in the very same lab. This Professor Holmes said was all that was needed to spark conspiratorial theory that quickly spread around the globe. At that point, people just said, oh, it came from a lab. It sadly moved from being what it should be, a question of basic science, into a question of global politics. That's led to the blame game finger pointing. In months that followed, the University of Sydney professor played a key role in mapping the evolution of COVID-19, which earned him 2021 Prime Minister Award of Science. In 2022, NSW Scientist of the Year. However, even after the COVID-19 genome was mapped, debates about the origins of the virus continued to gather steam. So, even an investigation by the WHO in early 21 ruled that the lab leak theory unlikely wasn't wasn't able to fully rule it out. So, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the mutations in COVID-19 virus to pose a risk, Omicron. But I'm gonna play this video at the end. So, ruling out the lab leak theory, politicians engaged in name calling and speculation, while Holmes and his colleagues turned the task of studying the data, first known cases of COVID-19. What we intended to do was to take all the data and analyze it the best way we could. I'm going to say it again. What we intended to do was to take all the data and analyze it the best way that we could. And let me stop right there real quick. In our community, this never transpires. If we have a question, a research question at hand, and it comes up in a discussion, and you have someone that may be familiar with the subject matter, and then you have people who are not familiar with the subject matter. What tends to happen is we don't gather all the information and analyze it as best as we can. What do? Jump to conclusions, start coming up with stuff, have no evidence to back it up, and create these feel-good moments and conspiracies that does us no service whatsoever. We immediately begin to practice pseudoscience. So while we can't collect all the data and analyze it as best as we can, because that's what the experts do. So using the best techniques we have available today to see what the most likely place and route of the origin that the virus was. Using spatial mapping tools, the researchers pinpointed the locations of more than 150 of the earliest reported COVID cases. In recent weeks, the research was published in two journals of science, which Professor Holmes said left him certain that the virus originated in the Hunan seafood wholesale market. What you find is there's a very, very strong clustering around the market. Not just the people who worked at or visit the market, but all of those earlier cases, even with no link to the market, they all clustered around the market. That's the epicenter. That's where the virus definitely started spreading. Here's an image from that Wuhan market right there from 2014. By contrast, the Wuhan Institute of Virology is more 30 kilometers from the midpoint of the early cases, making it unlikely to be the origin. You wouldn't expect it to be a relatively obscure market so far from the lab if that's where it actually began. Aside from geographic clustering, he also points to the fact that two different strands emerged almost simultaneously in humans, something that is much more likely if the virus had already been mutating in animals. If you look at the sequence itself, that tells you that there were probably two jumps from animals to humans, and that tells you this happened around November 2019. They're sufficiently far apart that they were probably independent jumps. It means there was a pool of infected animals in the market and it's mutated amongst them before it jumped to humans. All of this has led Professor Holmes to conclude that the question of how COVID emerged is settled. I'm extremely confident that the virus is not from a laboratory. I think that's just nonsensical theory. So the geographic clustering of spatial mapping. This is what he mentioned earlier. Detailing mapping where samples were detected inside a Hunan seafood wholesale market allowed Holmes and his colleagues to pinpoint a few square meters where COVID-19 was likely to have jumped between human and animals. It's extraordinary, he said. And I took a photo in 2014 of the stalls that was the most positively tested in the whole market. So here we see in the description of his image samplings of human case data of the Hunan from a study done by the Journal of Science. And of course, he co-authored it. So as you can see, because I just blowed it up for people to see, you see positive samples, interior surface of the freezers, right here, trash cart, right here, freezers, all this over here, right? He says a number of environmental positives. 0 is gray, 1 is yellow, 2 orange, 3 dark orange, then it gets to like damn near red, and 5 are hot spots. Now, the positive samples that he has are in these sections: Q61 cart, Q64 cart, Q68 ground surface, Q69 hair feather removal machines, Q70 metal cage in the inner room. All of this stuff is things that he's naming, right? The little squares with the dot in the center of them are human cases, okay? The squares with lines in them are the live mammals, and then with multiple lines. And then the squares with just one line in them, some of them are referred to unknown meat. So as you can see, positive samples on the wall surface, ground surface, shoe bottoms, gloves, all of that was found in this particular area in this market. So this stuff is pretty much the market right here. All right. Now, while Professor Holmes is fairly confident about the virus, where the virus emerged, which animal it came from, is much more murky question. I'm certain it's not a virus. I'm certain it was in the Wuhan market, but what animals were involved, this is still a difficult question to answer. It could be a raccoon dogs, but there are a whole variety of species we know being sold at the time. Look, there go your raccoons right there. Now, while Professor Holmes said the lab leak theory had been ruled out by science, he did not expect that to stop conspiracy theories. We will never stop hearing from people like Donald Trump about this. I'm not naive enough to believe that it will silence the debate. Professor Holmes said his main fear was that the lab leak theory would continue to be used as a political weapon. This horrendous global political battle is going. Now, it's being used as an attack to public health officials in the U.S., like President Joe Biden's chief medical advisor, Dr. Anthony Fauci. It's being used as a vehicle to support some of Trump's views. I think this will rumble along for however long people are thinking about COVID, unfortunately. That's the article. So what I want to do right now is get into this particular
A new coronavirus subvariant.
It's much more infectious than earlier variants.
A recent spike in local COVID cases.
The mutations just keep on coming.
Omicron BA1 and Omicron BA2.
Which is believed to be the most mutated version of the virus to date.
A new era of the pandemic began with Omicron in 2021, and the family is getting bigger. Omicron now has several subvariants that are spreading all over the world, and it's these two that have people worried. That's because they're getting past some of our immune defenses that we've built up. So even if you've been vaccinated or infected before, your protection isn't quite what it used to be. And this is why. Changes to the virus's spike protein when it mutates make it really good at getting past those defenses. But viruses can't change or go anywhere without their hosts, us. And right now, because so many prevention measures have been wound back, experts say we're vulnerable to even more variants. Now, this doesn't mean we're back to square one. In fact, we're in a better position than ever to tackle the virus. 2 years ago, we had no idea what was coming up ahead.
2020 was a public health emergency with no tools around to manage COVID, no vaccines, no treatments, very limited understanding of its transmission, and a real risk for high death.
Now we have vaccines, plenty of research, and we know what keeps the virus at bay. But even having those things doesn't mean we can totally ignore the virus altogether. Case numbers and hospitalizations seem to be rising again, and it's all because of these new subvariants. BA4 and BA5 were formally designated to be variants of concern by the World Health Organization, and that means they're either more transmissible, more severe, or reduce the effectiveness of public health measures such as vaccines, or a combination of those things. So basically, they have advantages that the other variants or subvariants don't. BA5 has already taken over as the most dominant subvariant in Australia, accounting for approximately half of the sequenced COVID cases at the start of July. BA2, in comparison, accounted for about 40%. For a virus, it's all about the survival of the fittest. Its number one goal is to infect as many people as possible over and over again. But each time a new copy of the virus is made, there's a chance that an error will occur, a bit like a typo in its genetic code. Some of those typos or mutations are actually very useful to the virus, allowing it to infect more people and outcompete other versions of the virus. It's a bit like what happens with the flu virus or other coronaviruses. To do that, to get around immunity, the virus only has to be different to what it was before, and SARS-CoV-2 is very good at doing exactly that. Just how quickly it can change depends on two things: how susceptible the structure of the virus is to change, and how many people it comes into contact with. RNA viruses like influenza and coronaviruses are already more susceptible to mutation, and that's because they don't have the ability to correct errors when they replicate, while most DNA viruses like herpes or smallpox do. But SARS-CoV-2 and other coronaviruses are usually an exception to that rule, mutating at least 4 times slower than influenza, because of a proofreading enzyme that helps it to avoid errors when replicating. Even so, we've seen a large number of mutations because of the sheer number of people who've been infected.
SARS-CoV-2 is actually pretty stable, but when you have what we have at the moment, which is globally many infections, essentially what happens is that you're upping the odds that any mutation that the virus happens to pick up that gives it some sort of advantage, whether it's the ability to escape from our immune responses or the ability to transmit faster, any of those advantages becomes magnified.
We've had Alpha, Beta, Delta, Omicron. What you're seeing here are just the ones that the WHO has monitored.
By not reducing the number of infections that are occurring globally, essentially we're giving the virus every opportunity to pick up mutations and to evolve into a variant of concern.
And that's because all around the world, and even in Australia, the number of people coming into contact with the virus is staggering. A new study found at least 46% of Australian adults had been infected by COVID-19 by early June. The prevalence of infection had almost tripled since late February, when it was estimated to be 17%. It's been a similar story right around the world. Every encounter with a person gives the virus just a little bit more of a chance to mutate even further. And without fail, the virus has produced variants that have eclipsed the old ones many times over. Omicron in particular has managed to dominate the case numbers and took over from Delta as the reigning variant in Australia back in January. The first version of Omicron, known as BA1, had dozens of changes in its genetic makeup. BA2 came quickly afterwards with enough genetic typos to get around our immune defenses. And then came the most distinct versions, BA4 and BA5. In the US, it took just 3 months for BA5 to take over from BA2 as the dominant variant. Now, the biggest difference in the variants is in the spike protein. The more a spike protein changes, the less able our antibodies are to recognize them and neutralize them. That's because when people either get vaccinated or infected, they develop antibodies that can neutralize the virus by sticking to its spike proteins. Now, the spike protein is what allows the virus to recognize and infect our cells, but BA4 and BA5 have several mutations that make the shape of their spikes no longer recognizable to our antibodies. That's why our antibodies are about 3 times less potent against BA4 or BA5 compared to the original strain of Omicron. To put that in perspective, our antibodies were much worse, up to 40 times worse at neutralizing the original Omicron compared to the original coronavirus.
They are more transmissible than some of the earlier variants. They're also extremely good at resisting our antibodies. They're the most antibody-resistant variants that we've seen so far.
So we're more vulnerable than ever before. Even those people who've managed to avoid COVID up till now will find it much harder to keep it away. And those who've already had COVID, well, you're more likely to get reinfected. The consequences of reinfection are still the subject of debate in academic circles.
Most people will be infected by Omicron, but a minority of those people will have a second infection. In terms of what the outcome from a second infection versus the first infection, there's no data to suggest that there's more severe outcomes following a reinfection.
But that doesn't mean the risk of long COVID is something we should ignore. One study suggested that about 5% of vaccinated people infected with Omicron and its variants developed long COVID, compared to 11% of people infected with the Delta variant in 2021.
There's less variability by variants compared to the variability you see through vaccination status. In the unvaccinated era, we saw many patients with long COVID. So there's no doubt that the prevalence or the risk is coming down, the individual risk, but because there's so many infections, the burden of long COVID is clearly increasing.
Australia's just at the beginning of its BA5 wave, so to understand how it might play out, let's go to a country that's already been through it. Early data from South Africa shows that BA5 grew at a much faster rate than the Omicron variant that preceded it. But the actual number of cases and people who got severely ill or hospitalised wasn't as high as the Omicron surge. Researchers narrowed down the reason for that, and they think it's because there were just higher levels of immunity than before.
What we saw in South Africa was a very, very low number of hospitalizations. We saw this wonderful disconnect between the number of infections that we were seeing, which was high and probably undermeasured, and the number of hospitalizations, which was low.
Before BA4 and BA5 became dominant in South Africa, 98% of the population was estimated to have had some antibodies from vaccination or previous infection, or both. But that wasn't the case in Portugal. With the rise of BA5 in early May, hospitalizations rose almost to the level of the first Omicron wave. Some experts think it might be because South Africa's population is generally much younger than Portugal's, but it's too early to say for sure.
What we have seen in this current wave is that the rise is much more faster than what we have seen in the previous 2 waves.
Now, BA5 is not the only member of the Omicron clan that's causing concern. There's also BA2.75, first detected in India, and it seems to be spreading at a much faster rate than BA5, almost comparable to the very first Omicron strain. The point is that the variants and the subvariants just keep on coming, and these won't be the last we'll have to deal with.
Unfortunately, I think it's going to go on for quite some time. I think we're stuck with this pandemic. And as long as there's a high level of community transmission, we're going to see new variants emerging the whole time.
So if we can't stop it from mutating, we have to give it fewer places to mutate. And that means 2 things: propping up our own immunity and slowing down the spread of the disease. In terms of immunity, there are large pockets around the world where people are still unvaccinated. In Australia, the uptake of the booster vaccine has been slow. The 71% nationwide rate of people who've received a 3rd dose remains much lower than the 96% who've had 2 doses. And then there's the problem of the vaccines that we do have being based on an older variant.
They work extremely well still at preventing severe disease and keeping people out of hospital. preventing from becoming infected is just becoming really a much harder thing to do as more and more variants of concern come out.
Studies are showing that antibodies triggered by vaccination are much less effective at attacking the BA4 and BA5 variants than they are at attacking earlier Omicron strains like BA1 and BA2. It's these two mutations in the variant's spike protein that are to blame for that. One solution proposed for this is a variant-specific vaccine. Pfizer and Moderna are due to release one soon in the US and the European Union.
The risk with that is that we may be sort of variant chasing forever.
We could just go around and around in circles because creating a variant-specific vaccine is time-consuming. And by the time it's rolled out, another variant's popped up. So we're aiming for a constantly moving goalpost.
The virus might eventually get milder and milder, but it's not going to be this month or next year. At the moment, we can't predict what might come out. Whatever that new variant is may be completely unrelated to the variants that we've seen circulating at the moment. So it's very difficult to predict where we're going.
Instead, we could develop vaccines that generate antibodies against a broad variety of variants, a sort of pan-coronavirus vaccine in combination with a broad range of treatments and, as experts suggest, public health measures to lessen the number of infections.
COVID means that we can't ignore it. We've got to accept that COVID is part of our lives and adapt to it. And the adaptation, I think, is going to vary at different times.
But there's one problem with all of this. How much more would people be okay with compromising on their freedoms? What would you tolerate? That is a question science can't really answer. Look at it this way. We've had a shift in our baseline. Early on in the pandemic, we would never accept the number of cases we've seen over the past few months, but it's also coincided with higher rates of vaccine coverage and natural immunity. There's the risk, though, that with transmission rates this high around the world, the next variant is more likely to arrive sooner rather than later and could, by all estimations, be more severe than the last. So it seems this is what living with COVID means, this constant balancing act between immunity and variants.
Over time, we will get better and better at living with it, which means better tools. We will have better vaccines. We will have better antivirals. We will get more comfortable with the sort of public health measures that will have to be brought in. So I actually am optimistic about the future. I think we will learn to live better with COVID, but it's not going to go away.
But that will also mean years, maybe decades of people getting sick, missing work, getting seriously ill, dealing with long COVID. And that is not ideal for any of us. So should we still care about preventing infections? Well, it's up to us to decide how big or small that risk is and what we do about it.
So yeah, that's that's pretty much the part that people don't want to understand, man, is the seriousness of this virus and its effect and its ability. This virus's ability to mutate and adapt is much more prevalent than probably any other virus lately, and it could be the way that we handled this pandemic. This was nothing like the Spanish flu, but man, it was way worse. And back in 2019 and early 2020 on Facebook, I was telling people that this was worse than the Spanish flu, and people was want to argue with me. They forget how long the Spanish flu took to circulate, and when it did circulate, how much damage it did. Well, this has done far more damage than the Spanish flu. Infected lives, ruined the global economy. It did all kind of stuff. So I ain't trying to hear that, that level of ignorance from people. So anyway, this was mentioned in the chat. And I only wanted to bring it up because I did have the source, but you've heard me mention this before. They mentioned a pan-coronavirus. Well, they've been already working on a pan-coronavirus. And then they were like, okay, well, we want to work on a variant-specific virus. a vaccine. So they're working on a variant specific one dealing with Omicron variant, right? This is what you're getting out of that. So this was already approved in the UK, soon to be US and other places. Moderna and Pfizer, they're going to be rolling out, doing that thing to deal with these different variations of being able to manipulate it. The reason that they're actually doing this way is because Omicron was so infectious. So if they could cut down on the infectious rate, right, target the way this mutates, adapts, or challenges things, then you'll be able to get that. But they're working for these to be boosters, as you already know. But that ain't the half. There's another variant that has been detected. If we want to go back and look at all our sources that we used in previous shows to extract that information, we can see that it hasn't really made its round yet, but it's out there. And this is the thing that we're trying to get people to understand, scientifically speaking, is that what you think you know, and you don't study viruses at all, what you think you know is very irrelevant to anything we got going on. So I wanted to just kind of throw this up on the screen. I'm not really going to get into all of that. I also dropped a link in the chat for the people who are interested in it, and I'll update and put it on the thing. But I see that we got a naysayer in the building, and I would rather just go ahead and have the dialogue now, and we can deal with it how we want to deal with it. And I would give them the floor. Since it's BS, come make your argument. Prove your argument. Whatever you call BS on, we could talk about it. And don't come to just really talk. I hope you have some sources you can put in the private chat. You come on, and I will pull them up on the screen and allow you an opportunity for you to be able to argue your point. And we're going to listen in. We're going to see if your belief can refute science. All righty. 1 second, Brother Lavelle. Let me update my video real quick. Let me bring you on. And you got some information with you?
I mean, I don't really need information. The information's already out there.
No. You need some information. You said information is out there?
Yeah.
What information is out there, and where is the information?
What information and where's the information? Dr. Fauci information about how you change the wording. It's all types of info. The other information I sent you about what
Hold on. No, because people don't know what you're referring to. So let's start off by addressing something so that then we could actually move on from the case. We could deal with one thing at a time. So what's your overall what's your problem with whatever the case may be? What's your points of contention? You're on mute.
Number one point of the contention is the jab itself. Let's deal with that. Because we all old enough to talk about getting smallpox, measles, and mumps. And we know we got that one time and one time only. And these are jabs because you get them 3-4 times. And they don't protect you like measles, smallpox vaccine. So we can knock that right out the box, can we?
All righty. So first of all, what you're trying to equate to one particular vaccine to another is totally different. You're comparing smallpox and other previous viruses to COVID. They come from different families. You're talking DNA viruses versus RNA viruses. Do you know the difference between the two?
Are we sure this is an RNA virus? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if this RNA virus because they only telling us it's RNA virus. You're saying it's RNA virus. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Hold on, hold on.
Go slow. You said we don't know if this is an RNA
So
virus. So
what I'm saying
let's
about this virus is, let me say what I'm going to say because I'm not going to be it for too long. What I'm saying is about this virus is that I've been around a whole bunch of people and that had this virus. I never had it. And I wouldn't have got no jab if it wasn't for the city telling me to get a jab unless I couldn't get no money. So with that being said, I did not get sick from this virus. So and so we know that young people didn't get sick from this virus. So we only know that only people who's really dangerous people was compromised immunities, elderly people, people in that nature. So we knew who should have got the jab. So I mean, let's we just deal with the facts.
all right.
So that was my
hold
my
on.
thing about it.
If I let you go on and on, we're never going to address your original statement because you're throwing a lot of statements at me at once, and that's not an insufficient dialogue. So first of all, I'm gonna have to work backwards. Kids got sick from COVID. That's a fact. We have evidence of young people getting sick from COVID. We have people getting sick in every age group. We have evidence for that. We have this evidence also that people were dying in different age groups. We have evidence of that. So that gets the young, middle-aged, teenagers, adults, young adults, mid adults.
What is the percentage?
What is the percentage of them dying? High.
In all brackets? You telling me?
Hold on. Let me be clear. The percentage of them getting infected was high. There was no low percentage, like 2%. One of the main reasons that a lot of children were not getting sick earlier on in the pandemic is because they shut shit down. Kids were homeschooling, bro. Homeschooling across America. Hold on. Across America. And the people that did have to work, they limited it to a specific category of people who worked in certain grocery stores and had to do this. And they deemed them, what was the name that they deemed all these people again? Some particular type of workers. I haven't forgot the name of it. It slips my mind. Now, we got people in the chat who caught COVID. One talking right now, her name is Honey Clark. She caught COVID. Okay. There's other people that caught COVID that were adults like our age caught COVID. So we can't say that it was people that was old and all this other stuff. That's out of here. Now,
then when they caught it, it was like a cold to them, right? Most likely, right?
No, that is not the case. Everyone's experience is different. Even if they were asymptomatic, they had differences with if they had trouble breathing one day, or they had something one day, or whatever the case may be. Essential workers is the name of it. Yeah, essential personnel or essential workers. So now I wanted to say that because that's dealing with one of your points. Now your other point is is this an RNA virus? We have evidence that it's an RNA virus based on the mapping the genome of the virus. It lets us know exactly, because when you construct the virus, you know if it's a single cell virus or if it's a double-stranded virus. This is essential because some of the stuff that you're arguing here in your earlier arguments are in my book that everyone was like, man, get the book. Sean gonna school you on what you need to know so you'll have this, that, and the third. Now, as far as your vaccine, I just want to knock your points out the way real quick. As far as your vaccine, this virus, what you're referring to now is you're talking about protection. So we have a very high percentage of people vaccinated against measles, mumps, rubella, and polio in the United States specifically. Over 95% of the country before this hesitancy occurred was vaccinated against those viruses. So it was highly likely that these viruses couldn't find a host because everyone's vaccinated against it. So it didn't have nowhere to build and sit. Now, what we do have is instances in America because of the vaccine hesitancy where measles, mumps, and rubella has re-emerged in Florida and in New York because of vaccine hesitancy, and polio because of vaccine hesitancy.
Sean, we talked about this before, though. We talked about there's communities out there that don't take vaccines, though.
Hold on. I'm giving you examples of two viruses that have re-emerged that was eradicated in the United States. What's your next argument?
I think I said my case already. I mean, because you got to take 4 jabs, and there's probably coming out with 1 for each.
No, you don't have to take 4 vaccines. Here's the issue. Earlier on, when they began to do booster shots, they were trying to boost their way out of the pandemic. Top virologists argued that that's not going to solve the problem. What we need to do is just vaccinate more people so the virus doesn't have a host. So the political realm, hold on, I'm just trying to give you some truth here, bro. What science was saying, and the scientists were saying, and what the political realm was saying. The political realm was trying to get everything back on track, get people back to work, back to in these atmospheres where people can go to football games, basketball games, go to work every day, function how they functioned before the pandemic. The problem is that was too slippery of a slope. We didn't handle the pandemic the way that we needed to earlier on because our President 45 was making some outlandish claims, and he didn't even want to say it was a pandemic until March, and then he wavered a little bit on that. Then we get a new president, and then he comes in, and we start to get science back on the road. But by this time, the virus has already adapted, mutated, different variants have came out, and things were handled in a way, and the political pressure was applied on him to get the country back operating as it was before. So then once we said, all right, we could take our mask off. Well, no, you need to keep your mask on. People didn't want to do all of that. So the virus just continues to be transmitted into ignorant people. We have some people die, other people get sick, and then you get these other variations. This is why reinfection rates are high. Now, and speaking specifically about the vaccine, all right, our first initial vaccine dosage was enough protection against the variants that had emerged. The problem is the political pressure, and then these forced, pretty much, this is my perspective, forced the emergence of other variants to exist, which went against our vaccine protection. But people didn't ever understand the science behind the vaccine. This vaccine wasn't created to prevent infection. This vaccine to prevent infection was a bonus. This vaccine was to prevent hospitalizations and death. Specifically, to prevent infection was a bonus. So now when you get new variants, those variants began to be more evasive to our immunity. So they created booster shots to prevent that and wanted to boost ourselves up out of it instead of following the actual science. Our initial vaccine effectiveness was enough according to other scientists. But the problem lies here. Omicron, a more infectious variant, a more evasive variant emerged, which puts pressure back on the vaccine protection. So you talking 3 or 4? I haven't had 3 or 4 vaccines. I've only had 2. I still wear a mask in public places, and I'm gonna be wearing a mask tomorrow when I get on the plane. So all of this other stuff, what other people doing, you gotta follow the science. This whole you're gonna need 4 vaccines. I don't know a person in our chat that's got 3.
So, the host animal for SARS-CoV-1, did they find it?
All right. So, in what I read earlier when I began the show, when I started my book, I spoke specifically about animal origins and or place origins in this particular chapter for a reason, because it is complicated to hone in on which animal or whatever did this, that, and the third. However, I mentioned something that was very similar. I said bats. I mentioned bats. Why did I mention bats? It's because they're known for being host to a lot of viruses that affect people. So, well, EIE said he got 3. But anyway, I only got 2. So, oh, Chavis got 4, but you part of a study, Chavis. So I don't even know why you trying to sit here and bump your gums. You just basically said all of that, bro. Oh, no. You know, I'm lying. I said I only got 2. I'm lying. I'm a damn lie. I got 3. I got the 2 doses that I needed, and then I got the booster. But really, I'm looking at the 2 doses as one set, as one vaccine, because you need the first and second one. And then that booster shot, I'm calling that a second shot. I'm looking at the first dose and the second dose as one vaccine. And then I'm looking at the booster as
Yeah, it sounds crazy. That's what I mean. It's too. Listen,
no.
I don't know what to say about
okay,
you.
hold on. Okay, so let me ask you this. How familiar are you with vaccine schedules?
All right, because I want to think about it. Like I said, because I don't even think about it how I think about any other. Hold on.
Honest question. Listen to what I'm asking. How familiar are you with vaccine schedules?
Vaccine, I think about it like if I would have getting a flu shot every year type of thing.
No.
We
I'm
know
not
that.
I'm not even talking about flu shots. That's a seasonal virus.
But
flu
that's what
shots,
they thinking this going to turn out to be. I'm just saying they don't know what it is. So we're going to think about it. Huh?
This can't turn out to be that. The flu ain't nothing like the coronavirus, and the coronavirus ain't nothing like the flu. They're separate viruses, brother. They're not the same virus.
Granted.
Listen to me. We got coronavirus year round.
Right, because coronavirus ain't nothing but a cold. I mean, it's in a cold family. I get that.
No, it's not from the cold family, bro. The cold is a whole nother virus.
I thought it was corona. I thought it was. I'm wrong then. I don't mind being wrong.
The cold is a whole nother virus. The flu is another virus, and the coronavirus is a whole nother virus. They're totally.
Is it normal for this coronavirus to affect humans so easily? That's what the science was saying. Wasn't so normal.
Okay, when you go look at SARS-CoV-1 and how it emerged, it affected humans. Okay.
Hold on, not to cut your wisdom, Sean. That's what I asked you. Didn't they catch that host animal in 15 months?
Bats. No, and I'm not saying specifically that. I'm saying bat origins. Okay. The same science that we're on right now with SARS-CoV-2, bat origins, but they haven't labeled it down. Okay. The reason that I'm saying bat origins is because we have evidence from 4 different areas that are outside of Wuhan that discloses the closest relative to the origin of this virus. So let me be more clear to you. What I was initially trying to say is you have MERS, which is a coronavirus. You have SARS-CoV-1, which is 2002, which I mentioned earlier. You got the earlier 2000 to 2002 to 2004 coronavirus. That's the first one. Then you have MERS, which emerged like 6 to 8 years later, which is the second coronavirus. It's in the same family, MERS, right? You get that from camels, okay? Riding camels, being around the camels, the whole 9 yards. That's why they call it like a Middle Eastern thing. That's where the name come from. And now you have SARS-CoV-2, which is all three of those viruses are a part of the same family, right? It's RNA viruses. When you said earlier that how do they know it's an RNA virus, this is how we know, because not only mapping, but we're looking at the genetic makeup of this virus and which family it comes from. See, in my book also, I tell you how it got its name, and I break that down a little bit in how they got its name. But ultimately, these are the things that what I keep doing is redirecting you to the evidence. The evidence says this. Our opinions ain't adding up to that.
No, the host animal is what for SARS-CoV-1?
There's multiple hosts. That's what I keep saying. But the main host, because they find it in bats. They find it in bats, bro. Just like they found it was synonymous in two. They found it in different bats in different places. I just read a lot of this information for SARS-CoV-2. It's like you didn't even listen to what I was saying.
Yeah, you could find it anywhere, but how did it jump from humans is the question. They didn't find a go-between animal, did they?
Viruses are zoonotic.
Because they found it in SARS-CoV-1, right?
Listen to me. Viruses are zoonotic, bro. If people go into caves or and they're doing work in their caves, like mining, for instance, bat droppings, bat feces, and all of that stuff is in caves. You're going to.
I've seen the documentary. Yes, I know. I've seen the documentary.
Okay, so then you know that you can inhale bat feces and so on and so forth.
But that's somebody's particularly doing a study for bats, and of course, you may contaminate yourself. All right.
Not only just that, rodents can go down in these same places where people were mining at or where these bats are and contract these same viruses. And when they come up from those odd places where these bats feces and things of that nature are, and they come up out of the caves, the next thing you know, you got people who are common with hunting these wild game, cooking it live. I mean, cooking it and eating it. All they're doing is inhaling and digesting the viruses. And then what happens? They get sick. The problem is that they go among other people unknowingly, and then they're able to transmit it to other people. That means it's jumping from an animal to a human. That is what zoonotic means.
So that's how this got to where it is today. That's what you're saying.
No, in this instance, we have evidence that surrounds the Wuhan market that says that live game and animals were sold in this that were infected. They found traces of the virus in all those places that I put on the screen. And then we have genetic flow of two lineage types, lineage A and lineage B, that flow not from the lab, but away from the lab as other significant evidence that helps precede how scientists conclude. But more importantly, they labeled the epicenter, which they initially stated with, was around this Wuhan lab. It was a hotbed. It was the epicenter. And then we get these cases that for these people with this so-called early cases of pneumonia going into hospitals and so on and so forth. That's where we are. But this whole thing about getting vaccines multiple times and this, that, and the third, these are, and I'm not calling everyone else irresponsible, but all these other people know how viruses work, the importance of vaccine science and its evolutionary process, and why the vaccine even exists. Because some people, he fell off, but some people have to be in that mindset. So initially, I don't get a lot of JaVale's arguments. I mean, he been fighting real hard against all of this stuff, and he's had time, but he hasn't looked at the science. He won't even purchase the book and read the book, and he hasn't looked at all the other data that would actually help him move his information forward to where he can draw a better conclusion. Now, I know that there was a lot of talking in the chat, and I don't know what the talking was about. You know what I'm saying? But to answer, I got to go back and look at a couple of things. Who the hell is Sean talking to? Oh, I was talking to JaVale, or better yet, the bad guy. As you'll see him labeled in the chat. But the brother, he's a cool brother. You know what I'm saying? I ain't trying to argue with him or nothing like that. But he sent me some stuff. But his hesitancy is out of ignorance, not intelligence. And I just hope the brother just kind of get through that. But I appreciated Dundada for throwing the essentials word out there, because that was the word I was looking for, and I got stumbled upon. And the reason that I said it in the video was because of you. But yeah, essential workers. You know, they orchestrated a whole plan around preventing the virus from spreading. That's why they took kids out of school, homeschool your kids. But when he started saying that kids wasn't getting sick, that was furthest from the truth. We seen kids get sick. We seen teenagers get sick. You know, we lost teenagers. We lost kids. You know what I'm saying? We lost adults our age. We lost adults older than us. We lost grandparents, great-grandparents. Like, we immunocompromised. To say all of that is like really, really, really weird. So I'm almost where all the noise start coming in. You want to argue? I can't argue with you. You mad? Oh, okay, that wasn't even it. Oh yeah. So yeah, Mika was asking what's BS, because she was confused too. So I agree. I don't see it going away. Okay, so let me get something clear. Let me deal with this right here. I understand why she's saying what she's saying. And she right here. But ain't no virus went anywhere. Ain't no virus went anywhere. Where y'all think these viruses going? The viruses that we're so-called vaccinated against are still out there. They still exist. And the more people that's hesitant, the more we're going to see the reemergence of a lot of these viruses, and we're going to have to get vaccinated against them again. So, by the way, speaking of that, brother JaVale, we're going to have to get vaccinated against polio again, and we're going to have to get vaccinated against measles, mumps, and rubella. Why do you think that we're going to have to get vaccinated against them? Because our vaccine effectiveness and protection probably has waned. But really, they're trying to vaccinate the teenagers more so than the older people against polio, since that little, diagnosis has come out, because those are the kids who really need it. And then that'll help everybody else who's had at least one shot of that in their earlier use. But when I asked you about vaccine schedules, and Mika can answer that because she work in the hospital, or supposed to. I just think that she just wipe old men butts in the hospital, but that's neither here nor there. Shots fired. But every vaccine that's on the market has a vaccine schedule. You don't know if you got to come in and get this dose, and then 6 months later you might have got to get another one, or a year later you got to get another one. You got to know vaccine schedules. This is nothing new, but this is also. But what is new is SARS CoV2, and our response to SARS CoV2. It's new. So as we've had time to learn in this going on 3 years, well, it is 3 years. Over the past 3 years, we've gotten better at managing and controlling the situation. You don't hear people talking about vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, all this holistic bull crap. You don't, none of that. All of that stuff that was going earlier on in the earlier onset of the pandemic, people ain't talking about that. All them claims that they was making, all of that pseudo stuff, we ain't hearing it no more. They're just making up new arguments around other situations. So, yeah, we need the monkeypox joint. That's a fact. Yeah, well, he ain't got no. Yeah, Sutek said, you know, well, he be sending me stuff, but you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like in question. Okay, when you start talking, I knew it wasn't Laville. Okay, got you. All right. What they arguing about? Smoke. Okay. No, the fuck, I'm not. I've been up there like 3 shows. It's other people turn. Oh, she said she don't want no more smoke. It ain't. She said it ain't her turn no more. She done been up here 3 times. And yeah, when he said something about black doctors lying or whatever, I don't get that. You got to have evidence to support the claim, and I'm gonna ask you for evidence every time. And you know what I'm saying? When he said something about children, I knew a Rondé's child, my 10-year-old son, isn't young, and he had COVID. See, it's detrimental. Everybody was kind of going back on some stuff that the brother was saying. And even you got somebody who fights me on everything. She said it kids did get it, but their symptoms were usually mild. Immunocompromised kids suffered the most. At this stage of the pandemic, it's so sad. The ground level stuff fails some folks. That's very true. It's very true. Yeah, I mean, I really wasn't trying to plug the book like that, but you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of the hesitancy that people have is in the book. Zion said jabs ain't the issue. It is. Yeah. Jabs ain't the issue at all. You ain't educated on it. I'm moving. Yeah, and that's why they stay in the hotels, infections, and if I gotta take 1 per year, let's get it. Yeah. The shot is for the season, and they never know that it's different. What you talking about? What you talking about right here? You talking about the flu shot? You talking about the flu shot? Well, what happens with the flu is the flu mutates and adapts. So every season, it's a different variant or different strand of the flu virus. It's never the same strand. It's always a different strand. It mutates. And this is the reason why they study like pigs, birds, and all of that stuff so that they know what's coming, and bats. How do you have to realize how things are told to people to begin with, and that's what they roll with. So they don't know shit about it and they still take it. Super Saver Pseudo in the building. Oh, okay. That's where the fight started. Okay. People put faith in doctors and science. Look at this. People put faith in doctors and science. We know this from Tuskegee joint. Man, look. He said, leave Tuskegee alone, bruh. I already beat you up once on that. Most people in the world can't read past the 5th grade level. Oh, wow. Well, I would think that the people that are part of this particular show could read beyond the 5th grade level or listen or comprehend. Sutek said, I got 3 doses, but only 2 different vax. Yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? When I said 2, I'm only talking about the initial first shot and second shot, because that means you had full protection after the second shot. So that's 1 shot for me. That's why I said that. And then the third shot, or what we call the booster shot, would just be the second. So I had 3 shots, but you know what I mean? The first and second is evident when you're dealing with mRNA, because we didn't get, well, some of us didn't get the Johnson & Johnson, where it was a 1-shot vaccine, because it was a viral vector. It was a different type of a vaccine than the other. Now, how would you think they would know anything about what a doctor is giving them? Was this for me? Why would I think people would know? because they make it evident for you. They already gave you the vaccine ingredients. All you have to do is research the ingredients. You have a synthetic. You have a synthetic, basically part of the virus that enters. That's what you actually enter. You got mRNA. You know what I'm saying? You got lipid nanoparticles. You got salts and sugars in its lamest terms. The mRNA is synthetic, so it is to enter and train your immune system how to replicate or recognize when the foreign pathogen is trying to enter the host cell. And then that is when your body is trained itself to protect itself against those things. Most of the time, in some people, in a large portion of the people, that bonus, that protection against infection is present and prevalent. And there's not many breakthroughs. But then you have different variants of a vaccine that has learned and been trained, because the virus mutates and adapts. It's trained itself to evade your protection. So now when it enters the cell, it's not at the same receptor binding domain as the previous virus would try to enter the cell, and then it causes confusion within your protection. And then it just, you know what I'm saying, it sneaks its way through. People need to read and comprehend, not just read. You're absolutely correct. He said if they can't read past a 5th grade level, then they should shut the fuck up and do what they're told. That's facts. Yeah, so Chavis has had all these vaccines because this fool in a clinical trial right now. That's why. When I said what I said about him, he in the trial, so, you know, we ain't listening to him. When his trial is over, then we can get some information from Chavis that we can speak to. So he's participating in the vaccine trials for people that don't know, because they're looking to do some things differently. And he decided to stand up for the Black community and be a part of the scientific process. So I'm gonna say this again. Brother Chavis is not talking in these YouTube streets. Brother Chavis decided to participate in the scientific process, therefore making himself eligible to do some things that other people act like they would have done but ain't done, or don't know anything about the scientific process. So when we talk about we're trying to be on the level of scholarship that we need to be on to actually speak to the level that we need to speak to, it is because we're participating, or we're learning about the process, so that we can understand how people arrive at how the experts arrive at their conclusions and understand that data. And his old lady was a part of a trial before with Johnson & Johnson. All right. And yeah, I remember you said that. But Sutek, you just said they don't understand and they should read. I'm banging on Moderna gang and P-Funk now. Yeah, because you got both. We got to have some unity. He said we got to have some unity. Pfizer and Moderna. Wow, crazy. So the two combined was the full dose necessary. Yeah, your first 2 shots. Shot 1, your initial vaccine shot, that's why they told you, you know what I'm saying, it only would give you a certain level of protection. The efficacy in the first dose of the vaccine wasn't sufficient. The efficacy could be anywhere between 49, 59, or 60% effective, depending on which vaccine type that you took. The second dose increased your protection, and that is what, against the ancestral strand, brought it up to that 94, 95% efficacy that we saw, which was by far better than what they expected. They never seen that. So when we got those earlier variants that was attacking protection in those trials, it was preventing. But when we got to Alpha, notice when we got to Alpha, when Alpha emerged, there was an uptick in infections because the vaccine rollout was, slow under Trump, so-called Operation Warp Speed. and we didn't have the right amount of people protected. We didn't shut down schools when we should have, and we didn't take it serious. He waited till late March, and then, you know, schools started closing at the end of whatever the case may be. I think it was April or whatever. Then essential workers was left to work and all of that. You know, my arm hurt for like 4 days. You know, I like the integrity to say he was wrong. People should take notes. That's true. Rhinoviruses is the common cold, correct? And I said that earlier in the thing when I was going over the explanation. So when you think of common cold, that is exactly what the rhinovirus is. And we talked about it. We talked about that in my initial video. If you, what is a virus? I think I talked about it in what is a virus. Man, let me just skip all the way back down to the bottom, boy. Y'all talking. I like this comment right here. What I learned from Tuskegee is they didn't give them folks shit. They lied and watched them suffer from observation of syphilis and what would Negro genetics would react without a vaccine, and they had the damn cure. Here's what Honey says she learned. She learned, what I learned from Tuskegee is that people trusted in the government doctors and that they were getting treated. And what everybody around them also couldn't believe the monstrosities going on, and they fought this in court. That is not what you learned. What you learned, honey, was that you was on some pseudo ass shit. You said that the government gave their ass syphilis, and then I had to walk you down and educate you on that. Then we got this Super Saiyan antibody pseudo, because he didn't get 2 vaccines, caught COVID, and then got 2 more vaccines. So he think he got the Super Saiyan hybrid protection now. Now he think, you know what I'm saying? This is what weed smokers think, boy. They get high and just think they goddamn can fight COVID. And lean sippers. You're not learning about faith in doctors. Listen, we're not finna go through this again. We're not finna go through this again with you. We're not finna beat you up on the Tuskegee stuff again. First of all, let me tell you something. We don't trust doctors. Whoever told you that, you got your groups wrong. We trust science. We don't trust governments. We trust science. We don't trust let me run these names down. Riza Islam. We don't trust what's the dude called King Kong consciousness dude? What's his name? The one that claimed that he was Marcus Garvey was his ancestor, or what? Who was it? Give me the dude name, man. Y'all tripping in the chat. I know it's a little delay, but we don't appeal to authority at all. We don't do that around here. Umar, yeah. What's the other dude? What's the other dude who did Hidden Colors? We don't listen to polites. We don't listen to the Umars. We don't listen to the Riza Islams. We don't listen to the Nation of Islam. We don't deal with the pimp. What's his name? The pimp who did the Hidden Color stuff. Tariq. We don't deal with Tariq. We don't none of that. The experts tell us don't trust them, trust the science. They've been telling us that. Stop listening to them. Go study the science. I read a social media post about Riza Islam today where they was big up in dude. I'm like, why y'all propping dude up? He ain't did nothing. Show me what community Riza Islam that went into and changed it. What did he invest in the community and what came out of it? Show me that. We don't trust no damn. I don't trust nobody that been on Sinetta TV. That includes my brothers. I don't trust none of them. That's just where I'm at with that. I don't trust. If you've been on Sinetta TV, I don't trust you. Not till you show me your information. I need your information. And it's only a handful of them that'll show you some real solid information that you can verify, qualify, and respect. And most of them people wrote actual books that are scholastically typed. No, I just gave a Sar olive branch. I gave a Sar olive branch. He the standard. He the only one that'll go over there and argue with them idiots and know what the hell he talking about. And she go again. I'm with Zane on this. Before I trust, I'm talking about listen. Take a side of the Sonetta shit show. I'd rather trust Jesus than any of them niggas he have on his platform. Any of them niggas he have on his platform. I go back to trusting Jesus. Send me back down the aisle to the church. So, ladies and gentlemen, we just had this motherfucker pop back up again. So now we're about to have father, my bad. She got a name. Her name is Honey Clark in the chat. But on these YouTube streets, her name is Captain Save a Shit-Out. In these streets, her name is Captain Saver Pseudo, but in the YouTube chats, her name is Honey Clark. How you doing today? Hold on. My bad. Hold on. Time out. I did this all wrong, y'all, and I apologize to you, ma'am. I apologize. And I know y'all can hear Tyson in the background. I don't apologize for my dog snoring. Everybody know I got an English bulldog, and that's what the hell they do. They gonna snore. And that's how it's gonna go.
I wanna be saved. Should I save her? I wanna be saved.
On the stream and the scene.
I wanna be saved.
Coming to us on the stream and on the scene, we have none other than Captain Save Masudo. How you doing today, ma'am?
Stop changing my name, Sean.
How you doing, ma'am?
I'm
How you
fine.
doing, Captain Save Masudo?
I'm fine.
Welcome back. You are becoming a regular up here. What is bothering you today, Captain Save
What's bothering
Masudo?
me today is y'all got issues with understanding what somebody is saying.
Be specific.
And trying to change what I'm saying. So,
hold on. So when you say somebody is saying, are you saying that I'm changing what you saying? Or
you and all of your friends.
No. Hold on, because I ain't said nothing to you. So
Yes, you did.
What did I change? And when did I change it?
When I was talking about Tuskegee.
I didn't change anything that you said. What are you talking about?
You were talking about what I was talking about, what I said, what I learned. Of course, I'm not going to give a summary of an entire experiment that lasted like 40 years. Okay. But the reason why I even referenced it.
Hold on. Let's start over. What you learned about Tuskegee was that they gave the people syphilis.
Why? That's not what I learned.
You can hold on. But that is what you learned. Because that's what you argued. That's what you argued.
You said, no. You said that they didn't get them syphilis?
No, I'm going to say it one more time. What you learned about Tuskegee specifically was that your claim is that the government gave small syphilis.
Right.
That was that's what you learned. It wasn't.
I learned more than that.
Hold on. I'm talking about initially.
Yes, I learned that was wrong, but I also learned more than
Whoa,
that.
you moving too fast. Slow down. Why you running?
I'm moving too fast.
You trying to add in all the extra shit. We ain't talking about that right now. We talking about what you in your initial position. Do you understand what I'm saying? Not before your edification
Well,
of.
my initial position had nothing to do with why I even brought it up.
In the chat now, you were saying.
Yes, in the chat, the reason I brought it up had nothing to do with my initial position on it.
Captain, Saber Pseudo. I need my audience to know specifically what you learned.
They know it's a show on that. You should refer them to that show where I explained that.
No. I don't need to refer them to the show, my sister. What I need to refer them to is where you was at initially, and then where you evolved from, because.
Yeah, baby. What's up? You want to get your nails done? Come on, let's go down the league to Kim's Nails. Yeah. We get your nails done, get your hair done. What about your kids? How many kids you got? 2? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we can go feed and clothe some kids. We get to go down and get the hook up at the Ranch Square. Yeah, baby, I'll do anything for you. Once your phone turns on, I get it turned on to mine. Matter of fact, I get you a cellular phone and a pager. We get that package deal down there at Cellular One. Baby, I'm here.
Are you done?
Yeah. I'm done.
Okay,
I
thank
mean,
you.
I got to play your theme music. You feel me?
You already did this.
When you would listen to me, when you come in the building, I got to represent you.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying? So, okay, so let's start over now. Because I don't know what y'all was arguing about. I was having my own conversation with, you heard me. I wasn't paying no attention to the chat. So, you got mad at Chavis and Sutek again. It seemed like you stay in a constant battle with them.
Because they just, you want to know why? Because as soon as I say something, they want to act like it's wrong because it came from me.
You dragged me into it. I had nothing to do with it. I was having a whole separate conversation. You just said y'all. Y'all, who the hell is y'all?
Yes, because when I entered the conversation talking about Tuskegee, right, and then they're talking about some other shit. No, I'm talking about in the chat when I mentioned it, and you like, nah, what you learned is this, and we beat you up on this, and we did this and that. What the fuck? That ain't had nothing to do with what I had to say. So there's that.
Is you finished?
You wanted to know why I said y'all and why you got brought into it. That is why.
Okay, continue. Now go ahead, get it all out. Let it out. Get it out now. Don't let it fester.
Thank you, sir. And so what I was saying was that there was multiple. First thing I said was that there was multiple vaccines that have several doses. Right? If you ever paid attention to the chart for the kids. Okay, so it having several doses is anything new, like old boy was trying to say. Okay, so they rolled their eyes at that. Then he's like, well, they don't know this. Of course, people don't know it. Even though people look at the schedule for what they're giving their kids, you're not looking at it the way that they did this virus, where it was like, this is multiple shots for the same thing. This is immunizing the same thing. They're not seeing it like that. So therefore, when it's this, they're looking at it like it's a total new thing, that you don't understand how vaccines work. So therefore, you feel like you should take one shot and it should be just eradicated. You'll never get it, because that's the thought process people have about other vaccines. And we know this. So they act like people should automatically know this, and that, you know what I'm saying, they're like backwards for thinking it is crazy.
That ain't true though.
We know it's not true, but it is the thought process that people have.
You don't need all these other vaccines. You don't need multiple vaccines, because we talking about eradicated viruses, like for real. And this is the problem with people. People don't understand that all the things that they're trying to compare the coronavirus to have been eradicated, meaning that 95% of our population has had these vaccines already. 95% of our population ain't had. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
95% of our population ain't had a COVID vaccine. So we don't have control.
Right.
So it's different. Once you start trying to explain it to them in kiddie terms, kids get it. Adults don't. It's kids out there that was mad at their parents because they couldn't even get the damn vaccine. Because they were seeing what it was doing to kids around them. My son didn't even want to go back to school. If you told him that he caught COVID, he'll break down and cry in front of you. Like he didn't want no part of that. We done made him go to his room and all that other stuff. He ain't never had it. But I'm just
Yeah, I
speaking from.
understand that. That's what I look, Syntax. Now look, you still sit up here acting like what I just said was all false. It's weird. It's just weird. Like it just because it came from me, it's not true. It's true. What the hell?
Do you want to? What do you want to debate him about? Because you really got some Anna.
No, because I said as soon as I said, okay, well, we have vaccines now that take more than one dose. Because old boy said, the one who you was talking to, we got to take 4 jabs and we got to do this and that. As if you don't do that for polio, as if you don't do that for tetanus and all the other shots. They do that for those too. It's more than one dose. You got to take it for. You do that for a lot of vaccines. You don't just take a shot and now you're vaccinated.
So do you agree when I said, do you understand what vaccine schedules are?
Yes, but that's
So
what
do
I'm
you-
saying. A lot of people
hold on,
don't
hold
understand that.
Hold on. Once I say, do you understand vaccine schedules? And someone says, no, don't you think that you familiar with vaccine schedules so they can understand that, oh shit, some of this shit I ain't got no vaccine against. I was supposed to go back 2 years ago and get a vaccine. So the next time you go to the hospital, they start asking you, hey, you need to get this or you need to get that for a reason. Especially like tetanus, because some people be, depending on what kind of work they do, if they for instance, a rusty nail, right? Or just a rusty nail. If that penetrates them and they ain't had a tetanus in a while, what will happen to them? Potentially.
Well, they're at risk for getting it. Don't they give you another shot though every 10 years? I mean, if you had that happen, they'll give you a tetanus shot again. If you haven't had it within 10 years. But when I had my children, they gave me another diphtheria shot. Because kids have started getting it, and so they started giving parents it when you had your kids.
What's the one shot that they can give you right now that'll stop you from contracting the virus or it killing you?
You said from a virus?
Mm-hmm.
Or any virus?
Mm-mm.
I mean, I don't know if it can stop you from getting it. It might
Mm-mm.
help not kill you.
If you get bit by a dog that got rabies, can you go immediately to go get a rabies shot?
Yeah.
Pull out your other cell phone and make sure.
Oh, I ain't got my other one. I wish I did.
Okay. But what about if you get it's another virus that from animal can get real good and they can stop it, like a snake, a particular snake bite or something like that. If you get bit by a particular like a poisonous snake, they can vaccinate you right there on the spot and it'll stop that. But guess what though? That don't give you protection, but for so long. And then if you get bit by a same poisonous snake down the line some damn well, guess what they got to do? They got to go back in there and vaccine it and block it again. That's why I needed you to have your phone, because you could be Googling some of this shit, learning.
Right. So I'm trying to understand why I get vitriol for agreeing with you. That's some weird shit. That is what I'm saying. Y'all weird.
What? What you say?
I said I was trying to understand how I got vitriol for agreeing. That's weird. But the stance that I made wasn't to say that like people shouldn't understand vaccines, but I know that most people don't understand it. And you don't understand how it actually works. Because I didn't understand how it actually worked until you showed me. So most
Do
people
you
don't understand exactly how it actually works. They think that the way the
say that?
guy was up here talking, that's how they
Hold
think
on.
they work.
Oh, nope. Stop. Say what you just said again from the beginning.
I
Who
don't
showed you?
remember.
Who showed you?
You showed me
I showed you what?
how they work, how vaccines work.
What is they? What is they work?
Vaccines.
I'm trying to learn here. Hold on. So you said that I taught you how vaccines work. What you said?
Yes.
When did I teach you that?
When I first, oh, I think it was the day I was talking about Tuskegee when I was wrong about it. But when you were talking at first, you were trying to explain
Say it
COVID
again.
to well, at first you was trying to explain COVID to
No.
Henry and how he
Yeah,
was wrong.
you no.
It was on that show.
Oh, you said you said that.
And you said that and you
No,
went
you said
through how vaccines work.
don't run. Just follow me. Walk with me. You said you learned about vaccines on the show where I taught you.
Yes,
I taught
right.
you on the show where you was wrong about Tuskegee. That's the show you
Yeah,
referring?
but
Okay.
yeah, it was the show that I made that claim, but it wasn't about Tuskegee. You was talking about the COVID vaccine, and you were talking about how vaccines work, um, and then why people were wrong about some of their notions about the vaccine for COVID.
Oh, go ahead though. I'm enjoying these rap snacks.
Why did I mention Tuskegee? I mentioned Tuskegee because we learned that in we learned in that there were a lot of people who were like who couldn't read, who really didn't comprehend a lot of things, and so they just went there and was like, okay, I'm getting treated. They didn't know what the treatment was. They didn't know a lot of other stuff. And around like the poor people today, it's the same thing. They go there because they have to. You know what I'm
So
saying? If people didn't need vaccinations for school, a lot of people probably wouldn't even be getting them for their children. Like they don't know what they're getting. They don't know what diphtheria is. They don't know what most of those things is. You know what I'm saying? So they're just getting it because they're told to get it, not because they understand what they're doing.
so let me ask you this. Maybe they trust their doctors because they got a good reason to. But so are you saying that
Kind
the
of.
people in this community, or the people that want to argue with me about shit, are you saying that they're just like the people from Tuskegee who struggled with literacy and didn't understand certain things? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is that most people who are who basically just rely on doctors and things like that, they just rely on people to tell them what to do and they go do it. And they
What about
trust
the
in that. You
with
trust the
me though?
school system that they're not about to try to kill your kids. You trust the doctors that they're doing what they took an oath to do. So therefore you go through those things. You trust the free clinic, you know what I'm saying, because they're here offering this and they're taking your Medicaid or whatever you got.
The
And so
parents.
therefore you put your trust in that and you don't really do all of that. Even though now I think they do give you paperwork at the end of each visit that tells you what this stuff is. I don't, most of that stuff is gonna probably get in the trash before they get to the car or the bus
Okay,
or
so
whatever.
so, so you gonna tell me that the parents who went through the same experiences as their child, the same vaccine as their child,
Yes.
don't have an issue with their doctor when they knew the shit worked for them when they went through the same shit their child just went through?
Yes. They're not. They just trusting in the system. Yes.
Are they trusting in the system with evidence or without evidence?
Well, kind of without it. And the only reason why I say that is because, as you see, listen, the only reason why I'm saying it is because you see people think you take a shot and that means that you'll never get this virus. So even though, yeah, it's like, well, I had chicken pox, but my kids never got it because they got a vaccine for it, right? So, but does that mean there's no such thing as chicken pox anymore? You know what I'm saying? A lot of people feel like that's what it is. That
No,
one
no, no.
shot makes it where it's not no more.
Mm-mm.
That's
Okay,
what
so
I'm saying. That they're it's kind of like the comprehension ain't there.
We're talking about trusting doctors. This
Yes.
is what I'm listening. I want to stay stuck on trusting doctors. So I asked you earlier about parents trusting their doctors. I said if the parents went through the same thing as the children and they know what the experiences is like, they're going to be more ample to rely on their doctors because they already had those experiences. Now, you bring up chicken pox. Would you want your kids to A, catch chicken pox or get exposed to chicken pox on their own merit, or B, have a vaccine that prevents them from encountering chicken pox?
I understand the vaccine keeping them from getting chicken pox. But what I'm saying is that no, listen to what I'm saying though. What I'm saying is that but the understanding of how the vaccine works is not there. Do you understand? Like it's so anecdotal that you're not understanding how the vaccine works. You just know that it works.
How is it anecdotal?
If that makes sense.
No,
because it's like it worked for me, so it's gonna work for my kids, it worked for my cousins and them. So right. So then
hold on. Do you know why it works?
That's my point. No, most people don't know why it works. They just know that it worked.
Yeah, but they have data, trials, other people.
Are you kidding me? Do you feel like if I walk down the street and talk to average people, that anybody would know how the vaccine works versus that it works?
I ain't understand the ignorance.
You know that it works. That's it. You don't know how it works.
We got evidence-based science.
I drive my car. I know that my car works. I don't know how it works. That's why I need a mechanic.
But you still getting your car and drive it. Even though you don't know how to drive, you still getting that motherfucker drive it though, right?
I know how to drive, sir.
No. I ain't saying you don't know how to drive. I don't know how many wrecks you've been in. But I'm saying you still get in your car and drive it and you don't know how the shit was built.
Right.
Exactly. But you will trust your motherfucking car.
That's the point that I'm making, Sean. But then if somebody comes out with another car, it's a raccoon. but no, I'm saying if somebody comes out with another car, and now everybody wants to cry about, like for instance, the water engine or whatever, and everybody want to cry about how that might not work, but you don't really know how a car works to say if it will work or not. And that's the same thing with the vaccine. It's another vaccine, and people don't understand how it works, so therefore they're saying it won't work or that it doesn't work.
They know that it works. So just like you knew that your car was gonna work, you got it and you drove it anyway. And you continue to get in and drive with it anyway. Because you know it works. When it don't work, you take it to a mechanic. The mechanic fixes it and then it works again. But you know that it's gonna work. But hold on. You know that it's gonna work because of experiments. You know that it's gonna work because it's been on a production line and then it was test drove, and that all the other things that needed to make it work was done to make it work. It is the same process. they're in trials, they're in phases, and data is reported on all of this stuff, whether people know about it or not. People know that they just ain't creating this shit. It's got to be tested. But even if they don't know, they know that it's been through enough that everybody got to have it. The older people. These motherfuckers been getting vaccines, not even giving a damn for a long time. This not getting a vaccine shit is some new age ignorant shit. And that's because
I
of
know,
people.
but it's because they don't know how vaccines work.
YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Kind of, but the way that he was explaining how vaccines work, his understanding, the man who was up here, is the way most people understand it. And so while you keep saying like, no, that's just what, that's this, that, that. Yeah, it is kind of backwards, but it's the common understanding, it's the common misconception. So therefore, when they came out with all this extra information about this vaccine and how it worked to other people who don't know how the other vaccines they got worked, it sounded crazy. It sounded ludicrous. It sounded like, oh, y'all just experiment. You really don't know. Meanwhile, it's the same way that all your other vaccines worked.
You ain't got to explain preventative to her. She know what preventative is. But here go the thing again, and this is my point, right? Ultimately, right, is that we have data that it works. Because the people who were vaccinated, the death rate curved, hospitalizations curved. There was less people that was in those positions. As you stated yourself, you knew that the vaccine worked because you knew that it was less people in that hospital when your ass got infected that was vaccinated than non-vaccinated because you was a non-vaccinated person.
Right.
And your daughter is a vaccinated person.
Yes.
Because your daughter is a responsible adult. And her mama is an irresponsible adult.
Well, no, because her mama is responsible. That's why she got vaccinated.
Oh, okay. So it was just after your ass just so happened to get infected that she needed to get vaccinated.
No, I took them to get theirs and I didn't get one. And I was supposed to get one like the next week or some shit, and I didn't get to make it there. I was in the hospital. So I got all of my kids, they went into something and got vaccinated.
Sound like you lying.
That's what happened.
How your kids get vaccinated and you don't?
Because it was something that was like geared towards children or whatever. And they go there, they vaccinated, they get something or whatever. So I just took them all to that one thing. Because at the time, that's when everybody was actually getting vaccinated. So it was like long ass lines. It was like everywhere. Like now it's not that much. You could just make an appointment and go. Felt like it. I couldn't breathe.
Hold
I
on.
know
So
that.
tell us about your experience, your bout with COVID, because you had black and white.
What? Did you say I what? Not
Yeah, you had black and
not nothing of that. So well, I couldn't smell anything. Not I couldn't smell anything. When I did smell, it smelled like garbage. Every time I breathed in, it smelled like rancid something just everywhere.
it must have been your
And no, it was just the smell. Like I couldn't smell anything, period. But it just smelled rancid. Just smelled horrible. And then my taste, I couldn't taste anything but like I might be able to taste like salty, sweet, sour, but it wouldn't have an actual taste to it. So like if I drank pop, it might just taste like syrup. It didn't really have a actual taste.
You mean soda? You
Oh,
mean cold
soda. Yes. Y'all so southern. So nothing had taste or flavor at all. Everything was disgusting. I couldn't smell anything. I couldn't breathe. So because I couldn't breathe in and like hold air in my lungs, it made it so I had to cough a lot. Like I was coughing a lot, and then my heart was beating real fast because it was trying to like basically make up for the air I wasn't getting. So if I walked anywhere, anywhere that I walked, I would have to stop and be coughing a lot, and I wouldn't be able to move forward. It was like I was dying. I felt like I was dying. I couldn't walk to like the door.
Hold on.
And I'll
And this
be
is asymptomatic. You know this is asymptomatic, right? Because you ain't in no hospital. You ain't on no breathing, monitor, none of that.
Oh no, I was in the hospital.
Okay, go ahead and
I
tell us.
was in the hospital. Well, what happened was I couldn't move without coughing. I just felt like I couldn't breathe at all. Like I was just gonna pass out. I went to the doctor,
Did you
and they just admitted me.
hold on. So let's do this because I want to make it clear. So when you caught COVID, was you in the hospital or they sent you back home and then you went back to the hospital?
They sent me home, and I went back to the hospital.
How many days was you at home before they sent you back?
Like 2 days.
So you was at home for 48 hours and then it started kicking your ass and you had to go back to the hospital.
Yeah, they sent me home with a at-home kit.
Yeah, that's what you
And
did.
it was like a thing that set my oxygen. It did my blood pressure and my temperature. And they would call me on this little. They had gave me like an iPad, and the doctor would call me on there like every day, and they would check the symptoms. It would every time I did it on there. And then my blood pressure was like way, way, way too low. And I was like, no, you gotta go
So
in.
they had to admit your ass back to the hospital.
And my sister told me, my sister was like, no, go in right now. She got RN. Go in right now. Fuck what the hell they talking about. You about to die. I was like, what? So I went in and they
That's
was
how it happened
checking,
though.
like
That's how
they
it
checked me and
happened.
stuff. But I couldn't move. I couldn't walk. Every time I walked, I was like hyperventilating. It was not good. So I just had to have air. They had put the tube on me. I had to have air like all the time. And then they gave me all these medications. And then it also, if that's what your lung.
Her phone, y'all. You see she's broken up and then she fell off. But as you can see though, her kids got vaccinated and she skipped out on her shot. She supposed to get vaccinated when they got vaccinated. I don't know if she vaccinated now or what her thought process is, if she ain't. But it sounds like she did get her ass kicked by COVID. And then you got motherfuckers out here like, shit, I just catch it. It ain't no thing. Shit. Okay. Play with it. Because the longer this shit lingers, the stronger that it'll get. And the more the more infectious that it'll get, and the more severe, the potential of a severe disease will emerge. So that's a whole problem. But real quick though, while we waiting on Denise to kind of get her life back together, where she can hop back on the link and finish telling us her story. How many of y'all heard about the dude who had monkeypox and went to McDonald's because he was hungry? Let me see if I can pull that bullshit up. Man with monkeypox goes to McDonald's. You can't make this shit up, y'all. Like on some for real Manila. Dude in Los Angeles. Let me share my screen. Yeah, Brazy Blizzle. Brazen, man. So look. It's a YouTube video. Let's see what it say. I don't know who YouTube it is. Here you
What's
go.
good, y'all? My bad, I'm not in the house. I had to go make a McDonald's run because I ain't got no groceries. You know, I ain't had no food.
What you mean a McDonald's run, man? You don't see that shit on your arm? You don't need to know what McDonald's you went to, man. What McDonald's in the hood you done visit, so we won't go.
Shit, you might show up for the wrong motherfucker at the wrong place at the wrong time and end up with the fucking monkeypox. And then who gonna be there to look out for you? Nobody.
Man, I'm hoping I...
Did you see this dude face though on some real shit? Hold on, let me let it finish.
You show up to the wrong McDonald's, man. You done put in that monkeypox at the local McDonald's, man. This is crazy. You need to stay home with that, homie. Come on, man.
Look, it's all on his face and it's on his arms. And bruh said he ain't got no groceries, so he made a McDonald's run. You cannot make this shit up, man. And listen, this is how viruses spread, ladies and gentlemen. Simple shit like this. The virus is live and active on this nigga. You see it all over his face, his forehead, his nose, his arms. Look at him. We don't know his preference. That's none of our business. But look at him. Him right here goes to McDonald's. This is a problem, y'all. So what if the people that served him his food got it? Now you got the people in McDonald's passing that shit around to each other, and now you have a whole nother problem. This is how viruses spread. People don't care. Watch this.
Just a pea-sized amount of Lumi.
What happened to me was grotesque.
Brian McKenna's symptoms started small. What he thought was just a pimple on his lip grew into 3. In a few days, a dozen.
My lesions had quadrupled. I then had them on my face and all along my neck.
His doctor confirmed it was likely monkeypox and scheduled him for a vaccine. But that's when McKenna says navigating this system became an uphill battle. He was told he was no longer eligible for the vaccine due to his symptoms, and then was told there was no treatment.
Asking the Department of Public Health, asking my PCB, how do I prevent more lesions? And I was told nothing. I just don't think they were prepared.
Not satisfied with that answer, he learned of the treatment called TPOXX and began demanding it. But again, told no, saying his case was too mild. That's when he sent doctors pictures, and suddenly his treatment options changed.
The pictures told the story. And when they did get back to me, they said yes.
Almost immediately, his lesions healed. New York City just declared a public health emergency, helping the city boost vaccination and testing. But so far, Boston has not. And so McKenna went public, bravely posting his experience online, hoping to inform others.
Everybody needs to know about this TPOXX treatment. By doing what I did, I helped a lot of people, and at least something at least something good came out of this horrific experience.
Sean Chabot, WCVB News Center 5.
Oh, gold ain't shit.
What's good,
Oh,
y'all?
gold ain't shit, y'all.
My bad, I'm not in the house. I had to...
Oh, gold ain't shit, y'all. I just want to let y'all know that. Look, man. Oh yeah, they threw the copyright up on that shit. They ain't trying to get no strike. They like, shit, copyright. I don't even want to show y'all this dude. Look at this dude. Look, hold up. Let me show y'all.
I was having a lot of fatigue and body aches. I just thought it was exhaustion from traveling. But the next morning, I woke up with rashes all over my hands. The lesions started spreading to the more usual suspect areas. So that really made the doctors sort of confirm that what I had was monkeypox.
Kevin Kawong believes he was first infected in late June, about a month after monkeypox cases began to be reported in the US.
It was sort of this like mystery disease. I think I approached things cautiously, but at the same time, I wasn't even sure what to be aware of.
By late July, the World Health Organization declared it a global health emergency, their highest level of alert.
It will not be the next COVID-19 pandemic, but as a public health professional, I am very worried about what's unfolding because this has the possibility to become a new virus that circulates regularly.
So, how does monkeypox spread? And what can be done to contain this outbreak? It's called monkeypox because it was first detected in research monkeys and because it's closely related to smallpox.
The way I think about smallpox, it's the human version of monkeypox. It's not engineered to exploit human cells and human bodies. We're like an accidental host.
Monkeypox is endemic to parts of Africa, where it mostly circulates among rodents. Occasionally, from close interactions like hunting or eating, monkeypox will spread from an animal to a human. And in May of 2022, someone showing symptoms traveled from Nigeria to the United Kingdom. Soon after, other cases began appearing in the UK, then Portugal, Sweden, the US.
Previously, the outbreaks were fairly limited. Epidemiologists were able to bring it under control. In the current outbreak, it's spreading fairly efficiently between humans, primarily through sexual contact.
When infected, monkeypox gets into your bloodstream and creates lesions on the skin. While it can spread through respiratory droplets or bodily fluids, with this 2022 outbreak, it's rare. The most common way it spreads is through skin-to-skin contact with those lesions.
We know that during intimate contact or cuddling, etc., you make these microabrasions in the skin. You can't really see it a lot of times, but they're there. So the virus just jumps from the person who has it, and there's tons of it, into one of these microabrasions.
Once infected, it can take a while for symptoms to appear. That can happen as soon as 5 days after infection to nearly 3 weeks after, but they usually appear around here. And these first few days of symptoms look like a typical illness as your immune system kicks in to begin fighting the disease. Fever, headache, fatigue, and even the swelling of your lymph nodes. It's after that that the rash and lesions typically begin, especially on the hands and face. With the outbreak that began in 2022, the lesions appeared differently. They can be localized more on the genitals and even appear more like bumps, something that not all medical professionals are trained to identify.
Even when I went into urgent care, they told me that this was definitely not monkeypox because the way that monkeypox had been appearing in photos that they've received were larger lesions, umbilicated, so kind of like donut shaped all throughout the body. And I just didn't have any of that at the time.
People thought to have visible rashes like what you'd see in the textbooks with these balls on people's arms, but they could be very, very subtle.
Dr. Chin Wong was able to diagnose and prescribe Kevin TPOXX, an antiviral medication that the government already had stockpiled.
There was a lot of preparedness, particularly after the September 11th attacks and the anthrax mailings that went into preparing for smallpox. We had a lot of tools already in the arsenal to fight smallpox, but that also worked for monkeypox.
The stockpile includes an approved vaccine. U.S. authorities are testing already made doses and ordering 2.5 million more.
And so we are in a relatively good position against this virus than we would be against a virus that we had never prepared for before. But we need to make sure that we use those tools appropriately and aggressively in order to bring this virus under control.
The vaccine can also be used as part of the treatment. If given within 4 days after the exposure, it can prevent the infection or at least make it less severe.
You can like develop your antibodies because it's like so slow. It's because it's trying to find a rat and it's a human.
The vaccines to come available have been restricted to the community monkeypox is affecting most, men who have sex with men.
Among the 6,000 cases currently reported to the World Health Organization, 98% are in men who have sex with men. But we also want to be very careful not to stigmatize the disease or to give the impression that it is exclusively and forever limited to men who have sex with men, because that's not the case.
It's a human virus. It can attack anyone.
Public health officials are concerned about the virus spreading to other vulnerable groups like children or even U.S. animals. Which is why the messaging is the same as the last outbreak we saw. Stop the spread and get vaccinated.
Yeah, man. You know what I'm saying?
Did you know that?
Get your ass vaccinated, bro. On some real spill, man. Real spill. Fight for real. Quit playing out here. Quit playing out here, bro. I'm not messing with y'all out here. I don't trust you. Get your ass vaccinated, man. But yeah, man, Javale, I guess you ain't gonna get the monkeypox vaccine either, huh? Since you just cool to walk around outside, ain't too much gonna happen. I guarantee your ass come across that monkeypox, shit. Ain't nobody gonna be, you know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody gonna be fucking with you, bro. Ain't nobody gonna be rocking with that. That's a whole nother ball game. But everybody just have to be careful and responsible. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't no game out here with this stuff, man. Like, you gotta just be in trusted areas and be responsible adult and communicate. You can't be making yourself susceptible to, well, if you got something, keep your ass home, bro. We don't want that shit. Keep that shit between you and your household. Leave everybody else the fuck out of it. Because we don't want no part of it. None. Zero. Zilch. I don't want no part of it. I'm not trying to talk to you. Don't pull up at my crib. Don't give me no cash. I don't want none of that, bro. None of that. Stay the hell away from me. You owe me, pay me later. Some shit. For real. And I ain't just homosexual though. You know what I'm saying? I ain't just homosexuals, bro. He said, keep your ass away from McDonald's. That's a fact. That's real. That's real. Keep your ass away from McDonald's. It's real. That's some. I don't eat McDonald's, but you know what I'm saying. I think y'all should keep y'all ass away from McDonald's too, since niggas is doing it like that. Factamundo. But yeah, man, look. Use a condom and got the monkeypox back. Stop the spread. That boy ain't got no sense. But look, man, I'm not gonna hold people up, man. It's, you know what I'm saying, it's late. I think today was a good build. I'm past my little threshold, man. I gotta get up in the morning, take Elijah, send my dope cash out. Take Elijah to see a sports orthopedic. He got tackled and on his hip, and he crying like a little punk. It's the way I feel about it. He crying like a little punk. But we'll see what's up with his hip. See if he can return to football or whatever the case. He said he's feeling a little bit better. So I'm thinking he was scared to play somebody on Smyrna or something like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that's the case. That's how I feel about it. But what kind of dog is it? Anyway, man, y'all enjoy yourselves, man. You know what I'm saying? Shake life. Don't stress everything out. Everything gonna work itself out. Go pick up Black Panther book, you know what I'm saying? Hit him up in the DM directly. It'll go across, I'm saying across. It'll be on Same Tree, Different Branch though, Friday. But right now you can go ahead. He's got 25 available books. I don't know if he still got 25 available books, but if he does have some available books, hit him up. Benjamin Njai on Facebook, and let him know you're interested in getting the book. Is African Spirituality or Religion? And he gonna, nice little Nice little piece price on the book, and he gonna ship it out and all of that. Get your book, man, and be ready to get educated or edified on the subject matter. And it'll go down like that. But yeah, man, she need a copy of that book, absolutely. But I'm gonna end, man. I'm gonna go on and end the stream, man. And if anybody want to argue with me about this vaccine, it ain't even got to be COVID, bro. It could be monkeypox. It could be any virus and any vaccine. I'm gonna kill it dead in the water. Cause once you know the origins and you understand vaccine science, this shit the same way. You know what I'm saying? Brother Javale said he didn't know if the vaccine was a DNA or an RNA. And I almost wanted to ask, bro, do you know the difference between the DNA and the RNA virus? You know what I'm saying? Because we still got people that don't know that. But that goes to show the way that I structured the book was correct, because it will edify a person on what a virus is before it moves on to the next thing and deal with all of that stuff. So that's proof positive just from conversations again. Now, remember, I've had these dialogues and discussions with so-called quote unquote experts. You know what I'm saying? And I've had these discussions with experts and I've showed competency while on these shows with experts who were fighting the pandemic, were fighting this battle during the whole pandemic. So, you know, whatever he would say would be very small or minute to me because I know how to handle the situation. But man, y'all enjoy yourselves, man. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate everybody tapping in, man, on some real spill.
Legit.